The story begins with a video of young Lindy Lewis speaking directly to the person who finds the camera. She sends messages to her family, unable to believe she won't see them again. Lindy also mentions her sister and friends, but can't explain what happened to them. Several hours earlier, Lindy is much cheerier in a different video. Her older sister, Paige, is filming and narrating. They're on a sunny island in Southeast Asia, preparing for an outing. Paige is famous online for her travel vlog, which she runs with friends Evan, Kahaya, and Seb, the newcomer who hasn't adjusted to their carefree lifestyle. Meanwhile, Paige chats with the pilot, Javier, who warns that he'll keep the locator off. Calmly, she responds that this is just their vlog style. Her audience likes staying off the radar. Javier also warns that their destination is dangerous, but Paige isn't concerned. She says playing it safe won't gain her more followers. Javier grows more worried as the group seems fearless. Javier announces it's time to leave, and everyone boards. Up in the air, Evan films Paige, who explains their journey to her fans. They're heading to Red Rock Cove, once popular among divers before it was declared a protected natural site. The group is excited, and Kahaya takes a jab at Lindy, saying fans love extreme content, so risks are worth it. Mid-flight, turbulence shakes the plane. Javier urges them to hold on, pointing to the cove in the distance. But the situation is much worse than they realize. The right wing suddenly breaks off, tearing a section of the plane with it. Paige and Evan are sucked out. Now in freefall, Javier shouts, "Prepare for impact," before the aircraft crashes into the sea, breaking apart. Lindy surfaces, gasping for air, calling for the others, but no one responds. All she sees is the vast ocean and the tiny silhouette of red rock on the horizon. The terrifying situation worsens when she spots fins in the water. Kahaya also surfaces, far less confident now. Lindy suggests they might be dolphins, but Kahaya isn't so sure. Soon, Seb appears, and they celebrate his survival. Lindy anxiously asks about Paige. Seb tries to reassure her, saying if the three of them made it, the others might too. However, Kahaya coldly states that the chances of everyone surviving a plane crash are slim. She even points out that she saw Paige fall from the plane. Seb tries to comfort Lindy, but she realizes they're treating her like a child. This only fuels her desperation, and she starts swimming, shouting that she must find her sister. They soon spot Javier, badly injured and unconscious. Lindy tries to wake him, but he weakly whispers that no one is coming. The locator is off. Seb confirms this. Since the cove is now a sanctuary, tourism is discouraged, which is why they didn't want the plane detected. Javier, with his last strength, tells them they can still turn the locator on if they find it. It's in the plane's tail section. Kahaya quickly grabs her gear and dives. Kahaya resurfaces with an inflatable boat, saying the tail is about 6 meters below. As they prepare to dive, they realize Javier is gone, and Seb has started swimming toward the cove. Lindy begs him not to, but he insists he can find a radio and save them. Then, Kahaya sees 3 fins racing toward them. She screams, they aren't dolphins. Suddenly, Seb is yanked underwater, screaming. Blood stains the water. A flashback shows when Lindy first met Seb. Paige introduced her sister to their vlog audience, and Seb seemed interested in Lindy right away. Later, when Lindy wasn't around, Paige asked Seb if he was going to tell her their shared secret. Seb dismissed it, walking away before Paige could say more. Back in the present, Lindy is frozen in shock as the sharks circle her. Kahaya desperately pleads for her to return to the boat. At the last second, Lindy snaps out of it and starts swimming. But a shark is closing in fast. Lindy suddenly stops swimming and asks Kahaya how far the shark is. Confused, Kahaya replies 6 meters. Then, 5. Lindy counts down, calculating the perfect moment. When she reaches 1, she dodges at the last second. The shark collides with plane wreckage instead. Lindy dives, disappearing for a tense moment before resurfacing behind the boat. Kahaya pulls her in just as the sharks close in. Exhausted but relieved, Lindy and Kahaya take a moment to catch their breath. Lindy shivers from the cold, regretting ever saying she wanted to swim with sharks. She asks Kahaya about her military past. In response, Kahaya shows her a soldier's dog tag. Amid an enemy attack, a fellow soldier handed it to her, believing she would survive even if he didn't. She wears it as a reminder to never give up. Back to reality, Lindy suggests rowing to the cove, but Kahaya insists they should first find the locator. They agree. To reach the plane's tail, they need diving gear scattered around them. As Kahaya stretches to grab a piece, a shark suddenly appears. Lindy yanks her back just in time. Before they can catch their breath, another shark collides with the boat, knocking them both into the water. Kahaya hands Lindy a knife to defend herself and starts explaining where to aim if attacked, but she never finishes. Just like Seb, she vanishes in an instant. Lindy manages to climb back into the boat just as the sharks swarm, leaving her completely alone. Hours pass under the scorching sun. Lindy spots a boat in the distance and desperately shouts and waves, but she's too far away. A sudden jolt from below reminds her, the sharks haven't given up. Strapping a knife to her waist, she puts on the gear and waits for them to tire out. Memories flood her mind. She remembers learning to dive, Paige and Evan teasing her fear, and Seb reminding her that courage isn't about pleasing others. It's something she owes to herself. Inspired, she jumps in. She reaches the plane's tail and activates the locator, but inside, she can't see what's around her. A school of fish startles her, but she keeps searching, grabbing whatever supplies she can. Then, the sharks return. She scares them off with a flare she finds and swims to the surface. She moves slowly but with determination, covering an impressive distance. Then, she sees someone floating in the water. Recognizing Evan, she rows to him, trying to pull him in. But as his body rises, she screams in horror. It's only his upper half. All that remains in her hands is his helmet, with the camera still attached. Using the camera, she records a farewell message for her family, but the battery dies before she can say she loves them. Holding her knife, she contemplates joining her friends in death. But another memory saves her. She remembers the day she kissed Seb for the first time, right after learning to dive. Evan made a cheesy comment, and Paige seemed irritated. Reinvigorated, Lindy shakes off the despair and starts rowing as if her life depends on it, because it does. She manages to cover an incredible distance and gets close to the cove. One of the sharks bites the boat's edge, causing it to deflate. She speeds up, but the predators stay close. Using the same trick as before, she waits for them to approach before jumping. The sharks devour the sinking boat while she scrambles onto the raft, injuring her hand in the process. The sign warns that crossing the cove's boundaries without permission is prohibited. Laughing at the irony, she opens the compartment beneath it and finds that Javier was right. There's a complete emergency kit. She drinks water, treats her hand, and tries to use the radio, but there's no response. Then, she finds a case full of flares and fires one. Her chances have improved, but exhaustion takes over. Just as her eyes begin to close, she sees a familiar face, Paige. Her sister, floating nearby, saw the flare and let the tide bring her in. Lindy panics, knowing the deadly trio of sharks could return at any moment, but she stays calm to avoid scaring Paige. Paige, injured and unable to swim, struggles to grab the rope Lindy throws. When she nearly dozes off, Lindy has no choice but to warn her about the sharks. Paige instantly snaps awake, grabs the rope, and starts pulling herself in. Just as the sharks close in, she barely escapes a fatal bite and climbs onto the raft. Their reunion is bittersweet. Lindy breaks the devastating news about their friends. As she bandages Paige's leg, her sister complains about the tightness. Frustrated, Lindy finally speaks her mind. Bringing Paige on this trip was a mistake. Their personalities never matched, and she admits she always forced herself into things she hated, just to prove she was as fearless as Paige. At that moment, the radio crackles to life. 2 men in a boat respond, saying they'll call the Coast Guard. The sisters cheer, but the relief is short-lived. When Lindy warns them about the sharks, the men stop and scan the water. The boat is struck moments later. One man is thrown overboard, and as the other tries to help, he loses an arm. Lindy, exhausted from the constant horror, breaks down. Paige tries to comfort her. In a flashback, the sisters' tension over Seb resurfaces. On their 1-year anniversary, Paige suggested faking a dramatic breakup for their vlog, an imaginary betrayal that would excite their followers. Seb refused, angered by the manipulation. Now, as Lindy relives these memories, they blur with reality, and she feels like she's losing Seb all over again. She wakes up with a new determination to take care of the sharks once and for all. The sisters come up with a counterattack. Paige ties a rock to a rope while Lindy splashes the water to lure a shark in. The plan works too well. One charges at her. Paige insists it's too risky, but Lindy doesn't listen. Under her sister's horrified gaze, she jumps in. 3 sharks close in. Paige screams in terror, but at the last second, she drops the rock onto one, killing it. Overjoyed, they celebrate, until reality sinks in. 2 sharks remain, and they have no more rocks. Then, Lindy spots a harpoon the injured man was using and decides to retrieve it. Wrapping rocks and bandages together, they use the scent as a distraction. The sharks chase the bait while Lindy swims in the opposite direction and grabs the harpoon. But the predators quickly catch on and turn back. This time, Lindy is trapped. Seeing no other choice, Paige lunges at a shark with a small knife, saving her sister but sacrificing herself. Lindy pulls her onto the raft and bandages her, but Paige is in bad shape. Feeling the end is near, Paige finally opens up. She admits that she always envied Lindy. Despite being the fearless sister, she constantly sought attention with reckless stunts. Then, she confesses something shocking. She once tried to get with Seb, but he rejected her. He truly loved Lindy and had even planned to propose during this trip. Lindy is moved, but before she can respond, Paige loses consciousness. Desperate, she shakes her, but it's too late. Grief turns to rage. Lindy prepares the harpoon, ties a rope, and splashes the water, waiting for a shark to get close. When it does, she strikes, trapping it. She then pours gasoline over it and throws a flare. The plan works, but the last shark retaliates, dragging Paige's body with it. Lindy watches in pure anguish, but she doesn't hesitate. Apologizing to her sister, she jumps into the water and swims to the boat. Once aboard, she tries the engine, but it won't start. The radio is dead. Overcome with frustration, she screams, nearly giving up. But then she remembers the oxygen tanks. With renewed determination, she tapes a knife to a tank and stands at the edge of the boat. When the last shark surges towards her, jaws wide, she breaks the tank's valve. The pressure sends it shooting straight through the predator, killing it instantly. 6 months later, Lindy records a video for Paige's vlog. She says everyone already knows the tragic details, but what matters now is honoring her sister and friends. With that, she announces her decision. She will continue their work. So that's it. Hope you enjoy the story. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more videos.